So Donald Trump's trade war has just begun, and MAGA is going to feel the pain. That's the subject of today's video, and this is the headlines here. Trump says Americans could feel pain in trade war with Mexico, Canada, and China. And that's Trump's actual language. You're going to feel some pain. On top of that, you probably think, what kind of pain? It's coming out today. Car prices face $3,000 increase as tariffs hit auto sector. On top of that, Trump is tarnishing our image around the world. We're getting booed in Canada. These are at sporting events. Just a couple hours ago, it says the U.S. anthem gets booed at Raptors game. Never seen this before. Another person tweeted out, so there's multiple videos on this if you want to watch it. It says boos ringing out during the U.S. national anthem here ahead of the Clippers-Raptors game. I saw it on ESPN reported. Basically, it's not just NBA games. I guess it's NHL games, etc. When the U.S. national anthem plays, Canadians are booing the Americans. Basically, again, Trump is ruining our image around the world. Top of that, it's also reported in Fox News, so this is happening. There was a response from Canada, from Trudeau, and there's a speech on YouTube. If you want to see it, you can. I'll just say it's very, very good. And basically, he goes over the long history of strong friendship between Canada and USA. And I can't even believe that we even have to talk about this, because usually it's something that's kind of unspoken. Like, we're friends. We don't have to, question that in any, way, shape, or form. But the way Donald Trump is acting, like, essentially he's a mafia boss. He wants everyone to kiss the ring. And it's kind of like, wouldn't it be a shame if something bad happened to your store? Wouldn't it be a shame if something bad happened to your family? You gotta pay up a little bit and kiss the ring. That's kind of how Trump acts. It's a mafia boss. Trudeau's response, I thought, was very graceful, and I want to just read a part of it. And he's speaking to Canadians here. This is what he says. He says to Canadians, it might mean doing all these things or finding your own way to stand up for Canada, and essentially calling for a boycott of American goods. Maybe don't take vacation in America this year, this kind of stuff. Think about just buying stuff only made in Canada, these kind of things. Basically, Trump has started this thing, and Canadians are going to fight back. Trudeau also says, in this moment, we must pull together because we love this country. We pride ourselves on braving the cold during the long winter months. We don't like to beat our chests, but we're always there waving the maple leaf loudly and proudly to celebrate an Olympic gold medal. And I'm reading this section because this one really stuck out to me, where he's like, we don't, like to beat our chests, which is very different than American culture. If you guys know this, Americans love to beat your chest, chant USA and say we're the best place in the whole world. And the way, Trump is acting, behaving is basically tarnishing American image around the world, right? And so we may face American boycotts everywhere, the same way that people don't want to buy a Tesla. And I just want you to think of this from just a business person's point of view, because people who love Trump, they say, oh, he's a great business person, etc. But you don't want people hating your brand, right? Think of it this way. When you go to the store and you go buy a TV, I'll use the example of Samsung or LG, because those are Korean brands and they're very popular TV brands. Do you think, oh, I'm never buying, Samsung, LG, because I just hate the Koreans. I just hate them. Like, most people don't really think that way. You're pretty neutral. You're just like, Samsung or LG, those are pretty good products, right? But if someone goes to the store, like, for example, let's say shopping for a car, and you're like, I could buy a Tesla, I could get a BMW, I could get a Ford, I could get, Hyundai, whatever. You're probably thinking, okay, so Ford, BMW, maybe Hyundai. Yeah, I'm kind of neutral. I mean, neutral in the sense of you don't really hate the CEO, like the CEO, you don't even know who it is. Where if like Tesla, you're just like, oh, hell no, I'm not buying a Tesla, right? That's the kind of thing that these people are doing to the brand of America, basically. And again, we're getting booed at games in Canada. On top of that, markets are down today, so we're open here in Asia. I know you guys are on a Sunday when you're watching this in USA, but these are the headlines. Dollar and oil surge, stocks fall on Trump tariffs. We also have this, Japan stocks fall as Trump tariffs stoke fears of trade war. And I have yet to see a response from China if they're going to raise their, trade tariffs on American goods there. Kind of see what I see is going on, though, is if you put it all together, let's say Trump pisses off everyone in the world, then several countries are like, fine, I'm just not going to trade with you, USA. And USA gets, locked in all by itself. And then all the other countries trade with each other, right? And I guess that's the kind of world that Trump America is pointing towards. On top of that, I just made a video on it. You guys can watch it. But Musk is looking to, cut funding to several things that the government does. and so essentially retreating from the world. This kind of this isolationist point of view for America that benefits all the other countries, but also it hurts everyone as a whole, like as a whole. So as a whole, we're all going to sink, but it does benefit other countries in the sense that it'll give other countries more influence around the world. There'll be new trading blocks that aren't going to be involving USA. And again, you're tarnishing the image of America. And frankly, it's awful. So I just want to put that in business point of view. As a business person, you don't want to damage your brand. And right now, America's brand is really hurt. Even the Wall Street Journal is calling out Trump again. They actually updated their opinion piece. This is the Wall Street Journal, and I've told you this before, they tend to be more conservative, very free markety, right? This is a business, journal. They called it before, and I'll read the updates. It says, the dumbest trade war fallout begins. So they're calling Trump the dumbest trade war. This was the actual quote from Trump. And the news publications have a bit of sense of humor, but this is just really what it is. Trump likes to write in all caps, right? And so that's how they printed in their publication. So Trump says, will there be some pain? Yes, maybe, and maybe not. But we will make America great again, and it will be all worth the price that must be paid. So I guess we're all paying a price. Trump says it's worth it, but I'll let you guys be the judge of that. It says Mr. Trump posted on Truth Social on Sunday morning. He also included a blast at these columns. So Trump was actually attacking the Wall Street Journal. A blast at these columns for leading the, quote, tariff lobby after our Saturday editorial called his 25% across-the-board tariffs on our friends and neighbors the dumbest trade war in history. And again, we're getting booed in Canada because of Trump. Wall Street Journal also goes on to say, we appreciate Mr. Trump's attention, though we're anti-tariff and not lobbyists, but bad policy has damaging consequences, whether or not Mr. Trump chooses to admit it. Mr. Trump can't repeal the laws of economics any more than Joe Biden could on inflation, right? We're just talking about how world economies work, et cetera. And again, Wall Street Journal is fairly conservative. That's why I mentioned this stuff. This is what they're saying. They're basically fighting with Trump. Because basically, to put it in the most simplest terms, Trump's an awful business person. He's had multiple bankruptcies. He damages his brand. He treats workers awful. He doesn't pay people, et cetera. He lies constantly. He breaks the law. That's who's the president of the United States, which is frankly insane. And then he's got this Musk guy, right, who loves to spread misinformation, disinformation. And these guys are masters at running a shell game and a con game. I follow this stuff for quite a long time. And that's why I just show you, this is what the Wall Street Journal is saying. More from the Wall Street Journal. They say, tariffs are taxes, and when you tax something, you get less of it. Who pays the tariff depends on the elasticity of supply and demand for specific goods. But Mr. Trump wants American workers and employers to take one for the team. Hope you don't lose your job or business before the golden age arrives. So they're kind of have a bit of sense of humor there, but this is a real thing, right? Trump is promising you all a golden age, and Wall Street Journal is like, hope you don't lose your job or your business. Financial Times also came out against Trump. This is their editorial board. It says here, the absurdity of Donald Trump's trade war, and I'll read a little bit what the Financial Times has to say. They say the legal pretext for Trump's move is questionable, right? So is this even legal what Trump's up to? He made use of the International Emergency Economics Powers Act, an executive authority that enables him to respond to extraordinary economic or security threats. Yet the law has not previously been used to enact tariffs. The courts and Congress ought to block them. Wow. Yet the trade war is symptomatic of a larger issue in Trump's America. The president alone decides which issues are important, exaggerates the diagnosis, and chooses the medicine, right? So he's just a one-man band is sort of what Trump's trying to do. Or you could argue the two-man band with Trump and Musk. Or you could argue the one-man band where Musk is making decisions and Trump's just following along. So however you want to argue it. But yes, this is not necessarily how a democracy should function. Even the Financial Times is calling it out. They also say here, as with his attempts to impose his own priorities by firing federal workers and freezing grants, the tools are often blunt. His trade war threatens to be disastrous, but the chaos will not end there. And again, our markets are already responding negatively. We also have, I'm just here in Korea, our markets are down a couple percent today. Cost of eggs are going to go up. They're going to blame Joe Biden. Of course they are. This is just what it is. It's gaslighting. And if you guys don't know what this is, and I just wanted to bring this in because sometimes people don't know the definition of this stuff, and I'll go through it. Basically, they well, the way they describe it in Google was psychological abuse, but it's getting you to question your reality, essentially. Let me read the definition of gaslighting. It's what the Trump people do, just so if you don't know. It says gaslighting is a type of psychological abuse that involves manipulating someone into questioning their own reality. It often used in romantic relationships to gain power and control over the victim. And when you talk about the Trumps and the Musks, their followers are basically like cult members, right? They're out buying merchandise of them all the time. They worship them, treating them like a savior and a Jesus figure, etc. And the problem with the Trumps and the Musks is these guys like constantly, right? They pull con jobs, and sort of when we talk about this stuff, I just stick to the facts. Like, hey, Musk has a bunch of like inaccuracies, and when he promotes his tech, he lies quite a bit. In his last earnings call, I told you guys before, he's like, hey, we have a path to becoming the greatest company in the world, worth more than the top 5 companies combined, which is frankly ridiculous. But it's the same kind of stuff that Trump will say, oh, we're going to be the greatest, right? And or whatever. This guy's at multiple bankers, etc. This is the kind of stuff that they'll do. Examples of gaslighting, again, coming from Google. Denying something the victim knows is true, right? So they always deny stuff. Spreading rumors about the victim. Blaming the victim. Withholding, such as refusing to listen. Countering, such as questioning the victim's memory. Blocking or diverting, such as changing the subject. That's something they do really a lot. Trivializing, such as making the victim's feelings seem unimportant. Or forgetting or denying, such as pretending to have forgotten something, right? And that's why whenever we talk about this stuff, I just point to facts, right? So simple fact, very simple fact. Both Trump and Musk, they have several children, not just like 1 or 2, but several children with multiple women. So that means they're often cheating. The other issue is, well, again, they have multiple lawsuits against them all the time because they cheat employees. Right? That's just their personalities. That's who they are. And you can't just make just random stuff up. Like if you're the kind of person that where every single month there's a new employee cheating you, or in Musk's situation, if people don't advertise on his platform, he's like, I'm suing you, this kind of stuff. Like they're always having negative relationships with people. That's kind of their world. I point this out. If you haven't seen this already, I mentioned before, I'll say it again. See the movie The Apprentice. It's about the early years of Donald Trump. It'll kind of fit in if you're unfamiliar with this kind of slumlord type of mentality. Or if you understand the MAGA world and the sort of difficulty to address the problems that they face. American Factory is a documentary on Netflix, and it's really well done. It shows sort of like in this particular story is a Chinese company comes in, I believe it's Ohio, to take over the factory because they need money in Ohio, and so all of the cultural and political and economic things along the way. And it follows the story of multiple workers at the factory, and then it goes to workers at the Chinese factory, and it's in China. I can't remember which city. But just watch it and you'll understand the problems that American workers face. I mention that because I don't want to ever act like I don't care about workers or anything like that. It's actually quite the opposite. I can guarantee you the Musk and the Trumps don't care about workers. I know from their actions of how they treat people. And this is sort of why we run through education as much as I possibly can. So, for example, if you watch, and I'm laughing because I'm happy it's still up. This is the Senate webpage because they've been wiping out a whole bunch of pages on the government websites. But if you want to read through this, but basically there's a scene in Ferris Bueller, and it's funny because even the Senate refers to it. They refer to what led to the Great Depression was basically a bunch of terrorists, right? And that was the anyone scene. And I want to bring in some more history as well. Just guys, if you want to learn, I can't cover everything like to extensive detail, but I'll just say this: we've seen similar stuff like this in history before. If you remember the Watergate scandal stuff, a bunch of people were like breaking into the Watergate Hotel, and they wanted to wiretap stuff. But part of this though was interesting is because I guess there was a slush fund to reelect Nixon, right? So he's getting all this money or whatever, and that was funding all this stuff. And it's kind of a similar situation in that, Watergate ended up being a massive scandal. But it ended up being like kind of a similar situation where you have this Trump guy, getting money from this Musk guy, and then they want to tax a bunch of people with the tariffs. And I've told you guys before, they want to create this external revenue service, which is going to create essentially a slush fund / sovereign wealth fund to funnel money to, whatever Musk companies and buddies. I find it very similar to the Watergate scandal, or even something similar to the Iran-Contra, which is essentially getting around Congress. That's what it is all about, right? Expanding presidential power, not in good ways. Because this is the kind of stuff that you want to think about is like, in a democracy, we have checks and balances, right? Even business people are calling out Trump like, dude, what are you doing? You're destroying our image. You're destroying the world economy. Musk is running around DC getting access to whatever government computers, personnel files, which is a big thing. Some people have actually mentioned as well that, the very, very sensitive topics, say like, for example, CIA personnel data, they're firing FBI agents. So when you get personal data, you start to get the addresses of all of our agents around the world, essentially is what that ends up being. Musk is then also taking meetings with various politicians, trying to get people to vote in certain ways. It's all in the public, which is crazy, and I guess people don't care. I don't know. To me, this is wildly corrupt. It's wildly dangerous, and you're doing nothing but damaging America. I made several videos about the whole Musk situation because you have to establish first, if you get that Musk is a total liar, and if you get that he's an addict, then you understand the whole danger of this stuff. Because there's some people who like this, like they can't get past that point. They're like, no, what do you mean? Musk is a genius. Like they actually think that. If you take the time to listen to the crap that Musk says, you're like, oh my God, how does anyone follow this guy whatsoever? And that's sort of where we are right now. And so then you also have to place this in sort of like, how does this make sense? Right now, the world economy is slowing down, okay? So it's not just USA. I want to make that really clear. It's not just USA. You can't just blame Joe Biden for everything. It is the world is slowing down. And we also came out of a pandemic, so we had like this crazy shock to our economic world system. And then also before that was the great financial crisis where we're printing a bunch of money. So we're overheated right now. And then and the Trump solution is like trade barriers and trade war with everyone. If you look to the past, that's what led us into the Great Depression, essentially. Like you had a stock market crash and the Great Depression. Where we are right now at the moment, though, I can see the UK is slowing down. What does it say here? UK economic growth will be half as fast as the official estimate. I see Germany's worrying about recession. They're going to have an election, and Musk has been getting involved with the Germans, pushing far right stuff like that, because people are more willing to go far right when things are going bad economically, because the basic far right explanation is, blame whatever, minority groups in the country. And so that's something that I've noticed quite a bit actually in comments when people who, love the Musk, love the Trump, they'll just start talking and complain about trans people. And I just want to make this really clear. Trans people have very little to do with the economy. The most important issue to Americans is jobs and these kind of things. And like they'll say, oh, if I vote for Democrats, I just, it's all about trans and stuff like that. It's like what are we even talking about? That's the kind of stuff that's gaslighting. It is just frankly ridiculous discussion. On top of that, the Korean economy is slowing down. We see it here in Korea, and then we go back to the markets are already selling off. So I can't predict the future 100%. I can't say this. People have been asking me the money situation, that kind of stuff. So my opinion on these things is diversify. Don't take too many risks right now. I think we're in a bubble in many different ways, be it real estate, be it our markets, etc. If you can get guaranteed returns, which is what a lot of people are looking at, like it's not bad. Like you can get a guaranteed 4% somewhere, be it through bonds may even hit 5% possibly. Or if you're looking at whatever dividend stocks that offer you, pretty safe dividends. Now, I will say this though, some companies do cut dividends, so you got to be aware of that. I think Walgreens announced I think they're cutting theirs, if I remember correctly. So that's where you're better off just buying like a dividend ETF kind of thing if you want to, buy those kind of stuff. But point being, in my opinion, and you guys do what makes sense for you. I would go with stuff that's safe right now. Pay off your debts. Make sure that you are needed at your job. Also, just be feeling around because you don't know. I think there's a real possibility there'll be some industries that'll be hit really, really hard by this trade war. And again, it's not just the trade war, it's also the economic slowdown. And you have to remember, if other countries raise their tariffs, Trump has already said he'll respond back. So then basically we're not trading with anyone. If you're just curious how this game is played, Trump's goal, his goal, he thinks, is that the USA is just going to go it alone, and we're going to be fantastic, right? All by ourselves. That's the idea. And then suddenly everyone wants to buy American goods. That's sort of his point of view on that stuff. But I'm telling you, the way that things are shaping out, it's actually the opposite. You're kind of pissing off the rest of the world. And then the rest of the world's like, fine, I'm not going to trade with you anymore, USA. I'm just going to trade with other countries because why not? They're not hating on us. They're not trying to create barriers, and you're the one creating barriers. And so that's why I started in the beginning saying, hey, they're already booing us in Canada. And Canada's our friends. And I'll just repeat that again. USA and Canada are friends. And it's sad that Trump is turning our back on our friends. So that's all I have to say. I want to hear your thoughts, and I'll catch you next video.